Well, welcome everyone to our awesome interview with the one and only Hank Phillippi Ryan. Thank you so much. I already did a little intro, a mini intro to you, told the folks that you've already been awarded a USA Today bestseller for this book, which is really amazing. So let's give her a round of applause, because that is really something.
I can tell you very quickly that you find out about USA Today bestselling status at 6 in the morning on Wednesday. And so the night before, you can't worry about it, because being a USA Today bestseller is about as good as it gets, absolutely so. But you know when it's going to happen, and it either is or it isn't, and at one point there's nothing more you can do about it. And the night before the list came out, I woke up every hour on the hour finding out if it was 6 o'clock yet. And then when it was 5 till 6, I listened to see if my phone would ping with a word from my agent or my editor or a friend that we had made it, and it did.
Yay!
And we did
awesome
so well,
ping.
so thank you.
So that was really and I also got the ping because I got a new bio, because they said you better be putting that in it, so I'm going to read that in a moment. But before we begin, I just wanted to share some of the things that I'm just really grateful for. First of all, fall in New England. How incredible. It rained today, but we've had a wonderful time. My mom and sister are here. My sister's from Dallas, and we got to spend the whole day on the last day of summer in the Boston Public Garden, and it was just such an amazing day. So Kathleen, thank you so much for being here. That means a lot to me. The second thing I'm grateful for is that our big fall forecast for 2025 came out yesterday, and I've included it all for you. So there's a postcard, and on the back is our top 10 picks. That started out as marketing, and now people call and say, is that list done yet? So I hope that it inspires you. It's a really fun thing that we do, and we have a lot of ways for you guys to be in touch with us. So if you're not already in our world, I hope that you will join us. And the next thing that I'm just so grateful for is Wingate. Can we just take a pause here and look at this beautiful community and really give them a round of applause? They are amazing. To have a resource like this in our town, I'm a member of the Needham Chamber of Commerce, actually the Charles River Chamber of Commerce, where I reconnected with Amy after a long time. And I just want to say, Amy, Megan, Nancy, you guys are the best. You underpromise, overdeliver, and in a world where that is definitely not the norm, that has become, when I think of you guys, that's what I think of. So thank you so much. This is just beautiful. And all that. And of course, I wanted to say thank you to Sarah Zengo. Is she here? The amazing Sarah. I think she's probably out working. Sarah's our senior stylist. She shows up for all of our clients. Many of them are here, and she always shows up for me. So she'll see this on the replay, but I just wanted to give Sarah a really nice shout out as well. And of course, the Needham channel in my hometown again. I was given the opportunity in January to host my own talk show. I mean, really, at 60 years old, all of you that have big dreams, so much of this program today, and we'll get into it a little bit with Hank, is dream big, people. If you ever told me I would have my own talk show host, and thank you, Mike Levin, you believed in me from day one, and Nancy. I was on Nancy's show, and that's how it all happened. So this is just so many wonderful people in this room, and Mike, thank you for helping me make a big dream come true. I really appreciate everything you do, and you just trust me, and I just love that. So I'm saving the big gratitude and thank you for our guest of honor. I have known Hank 25 years, 26 years, because I met you when I was pregnant with twin boys, and my boys are 26. So I've known Hank for 26 years. We have so much in common. We love books, we love reading, we love culture, we love clothes. Hello. But what I have seen in Hank, and one of the reasons why I love to promote all the goodness that she brings into this world, is she is somebody that became an author later in life. She can tell you this. She can give you the numbers if she wants. But here she is. This book is number 16. Is this number 16? All while being a celebrated television reporter here in the Boston market. How many of you know Hank from her TV years? Just amazing, Hank. Your goodwill. And I did promise, I have 5 personal questions for Hank, and I have 5 questions about the book. But before we get into the good stuff, and we are also going to save 10 minutes for Q&A. So if you have any questions about her amazing career, her books, Hank is the type of person that will answer any question that you ask her. But I just want to read you her bio. I was going to try to memorize it, and I just couldn't. Hank Phillippi Ryan is a USA Today best-selling author twice now, of 16 psychological thrillers, winning the most prestigious awards in the genre 5 Agathas, 5 Anthonys, and the coveted Mary Higgins Clark Award. These are big deals, Hank, really. And I always get to see Hank behind the scenes. She is one hard-working lady, let me tell you. So it's a pleasure to be here with her all dressed up celebrating. She's also the on-air investigative reporter for Boston's WHTV-TV, Channel 7, and I think they're coming today to film this, and has won an unprecedented 37 Emmys. Seriously? You don't sleep. That's it. As well as dozens more honors for her groundbreaking journalism and true crime stories. Her work has changed laws, changed lives, and resulted in millions of dollars of refunds and restitution for consumers and victims, I think I would put in there too. And her second career, here we go, that second career. So those of you in the audience that are thinking, I really want to take up photography, painting, write a book, you can do it. In her second career as a writer, national book critics call her a superb and gifted storyteller and a master of creating suspenseful mysteries. I've probably read 13 of your 16 books.
There's still time.
And this one is amazing. And this one's amazing. And she lives in Massachusetts with her husband, who's here, a nationally recognized criminal defense and civil rights attorney. Thank you for your service, sir. And her newest book, All This Could Be Yours. You're all getting a copy today. Hank is going to stay and sign books. But that is my introduction to the one and only Phillippi Ryan. Welcome, Hank.
This is so great. It just shows you how Mary Lou, thank you, how Mary Lou can bring us all together with our common joys and our common hopes and our common dreams and our common delights and the things that we share in common, which is the love of life and love of our lives and love of the world and love of storytelling and love of books and love of just talking to each other. We do a lot of that. Exactly. So thank you for this, and thank you all for coming. What a beautiful spot this is. And I keep thinking this is great for our shrubs and garden at home. That's what I keep thinking as I slog through this rain.
Okay, so we're going to start with the personal side of Hank. And I've got 5 questions, and I'm going to group 3 of them together. Have you always wanted to be a writer? How did you get your first job in broadcasting? And how have your years as an investigative reporter affected your fiction writing?
Those are 3 very separate questions, so let me try to answer them. I'm worried about you over there, though. Can you see? Do you want to move over to here? Are you all right? I see you peeking around the, whatever you call that thing, column. I know I have that word. So come on over and find a better seat. Do you want to do that? Are you okay? You're good? What about you? You're good? You're good. Okay. I'll talk to you there's so many people. I'll talk to you way over there. Have I always wanted to be a writer? That is a really interesting question, because what does always wanted to mean? I mean, I grew up in really rural Indiana, so rural that you couldn't see another house from our house. And my sister and I used to ride our ponies to the library to get books. We did, and we'd fill up the saddlebags with books, and we'd read up in the hayloft of the barn behind our house. And that is where I really fell in love with storytelling. That's where I read Nancy Drew. You read Nancy Drew. Tell me you read Nancy Drew. Okay, I see your heads nodding. The clue in the old clock, right? And the clue in the diary, right? Which I thought was clue in the dairy for a very long time in the book. And I kept thinking there should be cows, right? Cows. I finally figured that out. Then I read all of the Sherlock Holmes short stories and novellas, and I fell in love then with the sort of architecture of the mystery, that a writer could tell a story with clues and a main character who you loved, and in the end could surprise you and delight you with an ending that was logical and fair, but that you didn't see coming. And then when I was about 14, maybe 13, maybe younger. I read all the wonderful Golden Age authors, Nio Marsh and Josephine Tay and Marjorie Allingham and Dorothy Sayers. And I remember then profoundly reading Murder on the Orient Express. Do you remember reading that? If you haven't read it, that's your next book after this one. That's your next book. But I was just so captivated by Agatha Christie's skill at storytelling, at Agatha Christie's skill of putting together an absolutely propulsive, page-turning, captivating mystery that kept us guessing, but in the end was fair with its surprise ending. I won't give it away. And I remember thinking, maybe I should be a mystery writer. Maybe I should write about detectives so I can write a story like that that will pull my readers in and have them glued to the page. And then I remember thinking, maybe I shouldn't write about detectives. Maybe I should be a detective. Maybe instead of writing about Hercule Poirot or Miss Marple, I should be Hercule Poirot or Miss Marple. And that's why it's so amazing that I started out as an investigative journalist, essentially a detective, and then later in life, and we'll talk about that, started writing crime fiction, writing about detectives. So it's just so interesting how our dreams come true eventually, but we just have no idea when that's going to happen. And that really happened to me.
And then talk about your first job in broadcasting. That's a great story.
My first job in broadcasting, thank you. It is so funny. And it does show you, my darling husband and I don't celebrate the anniversary of the day we met. We celebrate the anniversary of the day before we met. And we call that You Never Know Day. Because you never know what wonderful thing is around the next corner. Isn't that true? You never know what wonderful, absolutely unpredictable thing is around the next corner. So I got out of college. I was a Shakespeare major in college, much to my parents' chagrin. My stepfather was like, oh, honey, you're going to be absolutely unemployable. You're just skillless with that. But I loved it. But after college, I decided that I was going to change the world, that I was going to be an activist, that I was going to make a difference. And I will tell you this because it's just us. Back then, I decided to go into politics. I was about 20. I decided to go into politics, I know. But sadly, not one candidate I ever worked for actually won. I know, and that is when, if you listen to the universe as I do, that is the universe saying to you, find another career. So I listened, and that's when I decided to be a journalist, to go get a job as a reporter. So in answer to your question, I went to the biggest radio station in Indianapolis, my hometown, and I went to the news director, and I said, I'm here to apply for a job as a reporter. I want to be a radio reporter. So the news director says, that's great. We do need a radio reporter. Where was your last radio reporting job? So I say, well, I've never had a radio reporting job. And he says, well, that's fine. Have you ever been in television? No. Magazines? No. Newspapers? No. He says, did you go to journalism school? No. And he's going through that. You've had job interviews. You can see how this is going. This one is tanking particularly. And he finally says, when you were a little girl, did you hand out neighborhood newsletters around door to door in your house? No, I didn't do any of that. So finally, he says, look, you seem like a very nice young woman, and I do think I could teach you how to be a reporter, but I just don't have time. And he says, and besides, you are supremely unqualified for this job. He says, can you give me one good reason why I should hire you? And I said, yes, I can give you one good reason why you should hire me. I said, your license is up for renewal at the Federal Communications Commission right now, and you don't have any women working here. And then I just smiled. And the next day, I had my first job in broadcasting. Yes, I know, it's hilarious. And I love that story, Mary Lou, because it's really relevant, and it's really timely, and it's really pivotal. At that moment, in that radio station in 1970, I was brave, right? I was brave, and I took a chance, and I found my calling. It's also a moment of history, because Jane Pauley, who was a pal of mine at the time, Jane Pauley calls us the class of 1970. the class of 1970, those women who started not just in broadcasting, but in every realm of society. In 1970, when the Equal Opportunities Laws changed, we grabbed onto those and we used them, to get what we deserved in society, not just in journalism, as I said, but in every realm of society. Jane Pauley calls us the class of 1970. The class of 1970, those women who changed the world for the rest of time. And I'm really proud to be part of that sort of breaking the gender barrier in broadcasting.
We've talked a lot about that. It's amazing.
It really makes a difference. And I want all of you to think about the moments in our lives that were just a step in our journey at the time, but that turned out to be something bigger. And also the moments in our lives when we were brave, when we took a chance, when we decided it was never too late to follow your dreams. It was never too late to do what you always wanted to do. I'm such the poster child for that. And I hope I leave you with that today at some point if you think, oh, I wonder if I should try that. I say, yeah, you should try that now that we're older and wiser. What's somebody going to say? No? And if they say no, who cares? We'll just try something else or ask someone else or do something else and go after what you want. Just like you did, just exactly like you did, and just like you do. And I think that is just such a valuable lesson.
And I always say, if you've done it once, you can do it again. So think back on the times in your life when you really were brave and tap into that power, because it never goes away. And definitely, Hank is here to show all of us that tapping into that over and over again. I love that story. I've heard you share it many times, but I think some young people could hear that today as well. So going off script a little bit, but your background is so interesting. Can you talk a little bit about when you were at Rolling Stone?
Oh my goodness, I worked at Rolling Stone magazine in the 1970s during the time of Watergate, and it was really amazing. And I'll tell you, it's sort of one of those, again, you never know what wonderful thing is around the next corner. I worked on Capitol Hill for the Administrative Practice and Procedures Subcommittee of the Senate Judiciary Committee, if you'd like to take that title in and try to figure out what that was. But we were the subcommittee of Senate Judiciary that figured out how the government worked. We were in charge of, this is not my fault, this is just how it all turned out. We were in charge of the IRS and the FAA and a lot of things about government structure. It sounds dry, but it was quite astonishing and quite eye-opening into my understanding of how government works, of how the system works, about who's really making the decisions on Capitol Hill. And by chance, I got that job by going door to door in the U.S. Capitol building, door to door from Senate and House office buildings, saying, here's my resume, I can do anything, anybody want to hire me? Just going door to door. And I got this subcommittee's staff office job, and the chairman of that subcommittee was Ted Kennedy. Now, I wasn't from Massachusetts, but that was another one of the moments that was just so surprising and so pivotal to me now that I've lived in Massachusetts since 1983. So, Rolling Stone. Yeah. So, we spent a lot of time at Hickory Hill, at Ethel Kennedy's house, Robert and Ethel Kennedy's house, Hickory Hill, and we'd hang out on the weekends. The whole Kennedy staff would hang out on the weekends. And one day at Hickory Hill, I met Richard Goodwin, who you all know, who's married to Doris Kearns Goodwin. And he told me that Jan Wenner, the owner of Rolling Stone, had decided to start a new magazine on politics. And he asked at the pool at Hickory Hill, Richard Goodwin says, do you want to be the assistant editor of this new Rolling Stone magazine on politics? And I said, sure, sure, I can be a magazine editor. No idea how to do that.
Are you sensing a theme here, everybody?
But I worked with Hunter Thompson, I worked with Richard Avedon, I worked in every realm of politics in Washington in the 70s. And again, who'd have predicted that? And who'd have thought about that? I traveled the country with Hunter Thompson as he was on his book tours and talking tours and speaking tours, and helped him cover the 1972 presidential election. So it was all a very heady time. And I learned so much from it, but I think what I learned the most from it was be open, be brave, see what's going to happen, and you just never know.
So because we have such a big Boston-based audience here, can we segue a little bit? Talk to us, because I love when you tell the story of falling in love with Boston. So talk about how you got here, and then we'll share a little bit more about your career at Channel 7.
Yeah, it's interesting. Television is a very nomadic career. And the key in television, as a television journalist, is, the secret is you start out at a small market. I'm making this up, like Grand Forks, Iowa, or some little town. And you have to do that, and it's important to do that because it allows you to make a mistake. If you make a mistake in a little town, it's not cataclysmic. You can learn from it and you can grow. So you start in a smaller place. I was lucky enough to start in television in Indianapolis, my hometown. That was wonderful and unusual because Indianapolis was the 16th size market. And one day when I was in Indianapolis, let me put it this way. I was the political reporter. I anchored the weekend news. I was the agriculture reporter, and I was the medical reporter. So there you have it. Again, every single assignment I got taught me something amazing. So one day I got a call from the news director in Atlanta who wanted me to come anchor the weekend news and be a political reporter in Atlanta. So I said, absolutely. So I moved from Market 18 to Market 6. And then years later, 5 years later, on the same day, and this is how it happens in television, the same day I got a call from the news directors in Dallas, San Francisco, Washington, D.C., and Boston, all asking me to leave my job in Atlanta and come work in that city. So I went to San Francisco and checked it out. It was great. I went to Washington, D.C., my beloved Washington, D.C. It was fantastic. I went to Dallas, really cool. And then I came to Boston. And I remember I left the airport, and it was one of those days that I know all of you have encountered where the sky is that Boston blue, that perfect crystal Boston blue. And I remember smelling the ocean, that briny ocean smell that sometimes it had the fragrance, and there were seagulls above. And I thought, we don't have this in Indiana. We don't have seagulls and ocean and blue sky like that. And I absolutely, every single moment of Boston was just glittering and smart and fun and timely and current, and there was always something going on. There was no question but that I was coming to Boston, and I've lived here since 1983, lived here ever since, just overjoyed with every minute of it. What a good choice.
And your first job was Channel 7, correct? Is that your station?
My only station in Boston was Channel 7. I've been at Channel 7 for 30-some years, which is lovely to me.
Yeah. That's really impressive.
I work hard.
You sure
I care
do.
about my job. Having a good story is paramount to me. Mm-hmm. It is such a responsibility to be an investigative reporter, and I grew up curious. I would ask my mom a question, and she would say, why don't you go and find out the answer to that, and then you come and tell me what you discovered. And I think that curiosity that I started with and the freedom that my mother gave me to go and find out what happened, to use my curiosity, to have the confidence to know that I could find out something, that just sticks with me. That sticks with me to this day.
And 2 or 3 standout moments from that era of your life when you were really changing laws.
Oh my goodness, as an investigative reporter, you have to think about that moment at WIBC radio in Indianapolis when I said I want to be a radio reporter. At that moment, I took a chance and I found my calling. And I've been a reporter essentially every day since then. Oh my gosh, you asked for good stories. Let's see. We found such incredible problems in the Massachusetts 911 system that we discovered that emergency responders, police and firefighters were being sent to the wrong addresses thousands of times a year in Massachusetts. Imagine that. You call for an ambulance, or you call for the police, or you call for the firefighters, and they're sent somewhere else. We found out why that was happening so often in Massachusetts. The state had no idea and was not fixing it. We found out why that was happening and got the system changed. Think about that, the lives we've potentially saved. We found firehouses in Massachusetts, the places where firefighters live and work. We found firehouses in such terrible condition that they would not pass fire inspection. They would not, the firehouses would not pass fire inspection, and we convinced the legislature to appropriate millions of dollars to fix the firehouses. And we finally, I'll tell you one more, we also found such astonishing problems in the mortgage lending and home improvement contracting systems in Massachusetts that 3 new laws were changed to prohibit those kinds of practices that we uncovered. We got people's homes out of unfair foreclosure. We got people their homes back. And when you think about, can one person, can one investigative team make a difference? You know, I'm really the proof that can happen, that if we work hard and be good, that we can change the world.
Awesome. So amazing, right, folks? Amazing. Thank you, Hank. You did amazing work for our state. So let's get into the book now. Tell them the story. I know all of her stories, so I'm picking out the best. Tell the story
She's
about
not going to tell any of my secret
and your
stories.
husband's involved in this one, which I love. The day that you came home and said, "I'm going to be a writer."
Well, you know, put it this way. Let's put it this way. I've been a television reporter for 43 years, right? I've wired myself with hidden cameras. I've confronted corrupt politicians. I've chased down criminals. I've gone undercover and in disguise. But one day at Channel 7, gosh, it was 20 years ago, absolutely 20 years ago, I just had a good idea for a novel. And you know how you feel when you have a good idea. You know, you sort of get goosebumps and you think, oh, this could work. And you try to poke it and deflate it and see if you can make it be small again. But this was a good idea, and I knew it was a good idea. So I came home. I had a great idea for a novel, and I knew it was a good idea. And I came home, and I said to Jonathan, "Sweetheart, I've got a great idea for a book. I'm going to write a novel." And Jonathan says, "Great, honey." You've heard this tone. You know, he's very supportive and very enthusiastic, but this was out of the clear blue. I said, "I'm going to write a novel." And Jonathan says, do you know how to write a novel? And I remember so clearly, I said, how hard can it be? You know, I've read a million books. So I soon, very, very quickly, I soon learned how hard it could be. But it was such a good idea, and I knew it would be a good book, and I was devoted, I was determined, I was obsessed, I was compelled. You could not get me away from my computer. I mean, I worked on nights, I worked on weekends, I worked all through vacation. My poor darling husband ate so much carry-out salmon from Whole Foods, I can't begin to tell you, right? Because cooking just stopped. And that became my first novel, Primetime, which won the Agatha for Best First Mystery, and that was 20 years ago when I was 55, and I've been writing novels ever since then. So as I said, I'm the poster child for following your dreams in midlife. I didn't write my
went to
first
that
book
book
till
signing
55.
that was at
Right.
Ralph Lauren on Newberry Street. I thought I died and went to heaven. And there I was with Hank, and that was just, I remember being like, wow, because I saw the behind the scenes and what it took, and really well done, my friend, really. So here we are, 16 books later. Anybody else? I was an early reader, so I don't want to give, anybody else here? There's a couple early readers at Wingate. Anybody here read the book?
Oh, have read this book.
The new book. The new book.
We won't give
Anybody?
anything away.
Up, down the back, okay. So tell us about the new book. What is it about?
Well,
Where did
it's
the
interesting.
inspiration come from?
I will tell, that's a great question. Harlan Coben once told me to write the kind of books you love to read. So I don't like graphic sex or violence or inappropriate language, so I just don't put that in mine. But I do like gaslighting and manipulation and deception and deceit and undercover activity and lying and just a little bit of murder. So that's what my books are. I want you to miss your stop on the T, right, because you're reading these books. If you like Harlan Coben, Lisa Scottolini, Lisa Jewell, Lisa Unger, Lisa Gardner, all the Lisa, and Hank, this is that kind of book. It's a fast-paced, propulsive crime fiction novel. And this particular book stars a woman very much like many of us. She's smart, she's savvy, she has had a career, she has a husband, possibly a great husband, she has 2 adorable children, and one day she decides that she has just had it with the corporate world. And she's tired of being invisible. She's tired of being ignored. She's tired of having the good ideas and then have somebody else take credit for them, and then she has to clean up their messes, and she's not doing that anymore. She says, I have one life, and I am going to follow my dreams. And how many of us have felt like that? So Tessa Calloway decides that she's going to quit her job and follow her dreams and write a novel. On page 1 of the book, she has finished her novel. It is a wild, massive success. It is a super duper bestseller. And Tessa's publisher has sent her on a glamorous, fabulous nationwide book tour where she has met with lines of fans and standing room only audiences and super adulation for this wonderful book. All of Tessa's dreams have come true. But I've heard this book discussed as a careful what you wish for thriller. Because soon Tessa begins to realize that she has a stalker, or maybe stalkers. Someone, or maybe someone's, is trying to stop her from having this career, is trying to ruin her career and destroy her beloved family that she's had to leave back home. So what starts out as a wonderful, glamorous nationwide book tour turns into a deadly, dangerous cross-country cat and mouse chase with the author running for her life. Oh. And that is All This Could Be Yours.
Okay, so I read the whole thing. I love the ending, by the way.
Not till...
And I have a couple more questions to you, but I want to open it up to the audience.
Let me tell you about that ending, because this is interesting. I don't know, and maybe this is a question that you'll have, I don't know what happens next in my books until I write the next sentence and the next word and the next paragraph. I don't know, which means that means I also don't know the ending. So at some point, there's got to be an ending. And at some point, I'm typing along thinking, oh, this is a really great story. I love this. And then I think, okay, Hank, who done it? And why? And I have to figure that out.
There's actually 2 endings in this book.
That's true.
There are 2 endings.
So when I figured out the endings of All This Could Be Yours, I was by myself in my study, and I stood up and said, yes, I got this. And then I thought, sit down, Hank, sit down, you've got this. So it is a joy to write these novels. It is a journey and a joy, and that is one of the great moments in writer days is when you come up with the ending. If anyone has any questions, easy, non-controversial
questions for Hank. Sure,
questions.
over here. Can I go over here? Hello, what is your name? Hello, Paula.
Hi. Quick question. So I can't imagine how your imagination works, but do you get some of your ideas from your life experiences and kind of intertwine them and kind of create various...
Yes, that's very wise of you, of course. I mean, my books are not my life or my investigative stories made into fiction. It isn't like I take a story that I've done for TV and change the names and make it sound like fiction. Not at all. They're wholly original stories. But if you asked everyone in this room to write a book called All This Could Be Yours, every book would be really different, wouldn't it? Because every book is really about the author, about their experiences and their lives and their hopes and their dreams and their fears and their joys, their curiosity. So this book in particular, though, I can tell you exactly where it came from. I would love to tell you this. I was at an event much like this one in the bookstore in Scottsdale, Arizona. And I was signing people's books, just like I'll do today. And I signed someone's book, So Wonderful to See You in Scottsdale. And I signed my name, and I handed the reader the book, and then I thought, wow, I've just given her an alibi, right? Isn't that true? It proves that she was there and I was there on a certain date in Scottsdale. So that was her perfect alibi. And at that moment, I thought, oh, that's funny. That's kind of cute. And then I started thinking about all the other things that authors, all of us, write in the inscriptions in novels. And I know you all have signed books, and I know you have books that say these things. But what about, thank you for a wonderful evening?
Okay, well, we've got to wrap up here pretty soon because we're going to be switching over the room. Hank is going to be in the library to sign, and you can continue to ask her questions. We've got time for one more. So who has a question for Hank? Anybody here? One more?
Bottom line, before you ask that final question, and I know you will, what the book turned out to be every single wonderful thing that happens to an author on book tour. You're on book tour with Tessa Calloway. The book takes place only in airports, airplanes, hotels, Ubers, bookstores, and library. You are on tour with Tessa, and it's a little bit glamorous, but it's mostly absolutely terrifying. I've had author friends say that they're glad that they read the book at home and not on book tour because it was creeping them out. Again, it's suspenseful. It's not horror. It's suspenseful. It's fast-paced, page-turning suspense. And I know we're out of time, Mary Lou, so thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, great. Let's hear it for Hank, everyone. So we're going to have, Hank is going to be in the library. We're going to ask you to go through the main entrance and come and see Hank through the second entrance that's also in the library. We have plenty of cheer, nibbles, delightful wine, cheese. Please, there's lots of you know one another. Please get to know one another a little bit better. And Hank will stay. We've got about another hour for her to sign the books. If you all got a book for coming today, if you'd like to buy another as a gift or a Christmas gift, it is an awesome book. I loved it.
I'll add what my agent always tells me to say. A signed book makes a great gift.
A signed book makes a great
So you
gift.
know Thanksgiving is coming, you know the holidays are coming. Do not go into your closets and take out one of those old candles and wrap it up and pretend it's new. Okay? Get a signed book and people will know that you've thought of them.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Hank. Thank you so much. Okay. Thanks, everyone.